When you open up the Barcelona Pavilion file, you should see something like this. Nothing out of the ordinary. We have the pavilion to the perspective here in this viewport. We have the top view, plan view. We have a section front here and another one here, which is the right view. So the first thing we're going to do is design a layout, and a layout is one of the methods we're going to use to make a two-dimensional extraction from these 3D drawings. So we can simply click on this button here that says Layouts. Another way to invoke this will just be to type in Layout and press Enter. And it should bring up this dialog box that says New Layout. So we're going to change this name to Bark Pavilion Layout. And for the detail count, we're going to choose 3. If I just had 1, we would just have one of these views, but I would like 3 different views. So I'm going to choose 3, and we'll specify in a minute how that's going to be laid out. For my paper size, I'm choosing ArcD 24 by 36 in landscape format, and I'm going to click Apply. And we can see here is our Bark Pavilion layout. And we can save multiple layouts, so just starting with this one now, and it's going to tell us what size it is. So what's really happening here is it's sort of extracting views from different viewports, right? And if I go here into this top panel here, and if I double click, you'll see that I'm actually going into the top view. And you can see I can use my hotkeys and I can navigate around just like I would normally in the Rhino file. So, but what I actually want to do is change this to perspective view. So I'm simply going to right click here and I'm going to set my view to perspective. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is, obviously this is not a great way to demonstrate and to you know, make a 2D drawing of this 3D model. So what I'd like to do here is change the display. Once again, I'm going to right click on here, and instead of wireframe, let's choose pen. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is set the view, sort of change the view so that we can see most of the building. So it's a good layout for us to see some of the details. So I'm going to right click here again, and under set view, I'm actually going to choose isometric southeast. And I'm not totally happy with that, so I'm just going to orbit that a little bit. I'm going to move it to the right, to the left, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit like that and bring that over. I do want all of the building in here, and let's do something like that. I'm leaving some space here for text, so we're going to leave that as is right now. I'm going to double click out of that. So now we have the top panel set. Let's go ahead and set these to the section view. So I'm going to double click on this. Now all these different layers are, these different layers have colors. I don't want them to be different colors. So I'm going to very quickly select all of the content in here. And I'm going to go over to my properties, and where it says display color by layer, I'm just going to go ahead here and click on black. Let's see if that changed everything. Yes. So what I want is I want all of this to be a black outline. Now the last thing I'm going to do is set the scale. And to do that, I double clicked in Fresh Air here, and I'm going to click, just one click on the detail view. And you'll see here in the properties detail that there is a scale value. So you can play around with this. You want to make this something that's reasonable, like 1 to 100 or 1 to 120 or 1 to 150. So let's see what happens if I do 1 to 100. So that's a little bit big, but I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to change this detail to 1 to 100 as well. So 1 to 100. And what I'm going to do now is I can actually resize these detail views. So let me just grab this. I'm going to hold on Shift, select these two control points, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so I can bring most of that in view. Okay, And then similar here, I'm going to grab these 2 points and let's just drag them over here. And now I just need to reposition the contents of each of these, right? So I'm going to double click here. I'm going to right click and just sort of move this over a little bit. And I'm going to do the same here. Move this over. It looks like I need a little bit more space. So double click. I'm going to click on my detailed view, hold down Shift, select my points, and I'm just making my detail box a little bit smaller. Double click inside of it and drag to the right. And click on my detail view, select these 2 points, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. And then double click in here and just bring this over a little bit. So this is what I want you to do for the layout. And then the last step is to create some text. So without being inside any of these views, so don't double click on the outside, right? We're in the layout view. I'm just going to type text. That's going to bring up the text dialog box, and we're going to just call this Barcelona Pavilion. I'm going to use an M dash here, Mies van der Rohe. And our scale is 1 to 100. Actually, I'm not going to use any hyphens here. All right, and when I say apply, okay, that came in a little bit big, but we're just going to place it for now. Then I can select it, and I'm just going to hold down Shift and use my gumball, and I'm going to resize this, like so. And then I'm going to move it to somewhere where it makes sense. Maybe I'll do it here. Or maybe I'll put it down here, sort of in the middle. And if you'd like to change anything, for example, maybe I want this left aligned. And maybe I want this to be bold. And maybe I even want a different typeface. So instead of Arial, maybe we want Helvetica. I'll let you choose something that makes sense for you and what looks good to you. I'm going to go with something like this and say apply. And then I'm just going to move this text over here. So that's about what I'd like you to do for the layout. When you're done with this, we're going to go to File, Export, and we're going to export as a PDF. And I have a demo folder set up here. And we're going to just say this is the Bark Pavilion layout. And the last step is to make sure you have landscape. We want to, we want to have a vector output for this one. Let's do black and white. And we are going to make sure that we have selected our layout. So if we wanted to do an PDF export for any of our other views, we could do that here too. But in this case, we want our layout. And you can see there's actually a box here for multiple. So I can do multiple layers at the same time and export them at the same time. But we're going to keep this exercise simple. And I'm just going to say apply. And there we go. And so now if we open up Acrobat, and let's open that up in Acrobat, you should have something that looks like this. So feel free to play around with color, with line weight. We are going to cover some more line weight next week, but if you'd like to experiment with that or experiment with different color lines or text, or even if you want to switch some of these boxes around, but this is the minimum that you should do for the layout process. So that concludes the first part of this assignment. The next method of creating 2D drawing extractions from our 3D drawing is to use the set view command. So what I'm going to do is just explain a bit more detail how this works, and we're going to use the camera. So we know that we already have views within Rhino. We have the perspective view, the top view, the front view, the right view. What actually is happening here is that each one of these viewports is a camera angle, right? It's sort of, there's an origin point. In fact, let's have a look at I'm just going to turn on the help function here, and I'm going to type in camera. And you'll see that this is what the camera looks like. And we can see that the first point is the camera viewpoint. So this is where you might be standing with a camera, right? Or where the observer's eye is. We can also move the whole widget with this point here. And then we can see there is also something called target point. So the 2 points we're going to use in this exercise is number 1 and number 4. And I'll explain some of the other points as well. So what we want to do first is make sure that you have, I'm just going to exit out of that. Make sure that you have perspective view selected. Now, whichever viewport you have selected, that is where the camera is not going to show. So let's switch on the camera. I'm going to type in camera and I'm going to say show. And you'll see nothing happened in the perspective view, but if I scroll out in the top view and the front view and the right view, we can see here's the origin point of the camera. We're looking from the top view, and this is sort of the window, right, of the view of the camera. You can also see if I if I orbit in perspective view that the camera angles change. And if I zoom in or out, you can see that the camera lens changes as well. So all of this is shows up in the camera views as well. So what we're going to do here is, instead of just sort of moving randomly around, we are going to create some views with very specific points. So what I want you to do is just sort of orbit this way around. We're going to use this point here as a reference. And I'm just going to type in line. I'm going to scroll in a little bit, zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to just select this corner here. And I'm going to make this 5 feet 8 inches tall. And I'm going to go to the front view, hold down shift and just pull up. And what that's going to give me is just a line, right? And this is we're just putting this here as a person. This is let's say an average person's height, probably a little taller than the average person. But just imagine this is a person standing here, and we're going to move this around for our reference. So I'm just selecting that. I'm going to move over here in top view, and I'm going to move this over in the X and then over here. So I want my person to be standing here, and I want them to look this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this here. Let's actually move this a little bit back, and maybe, let's see, a little bit this way. And what I'm going to do now is, this doesn't matter which perspective you do this in, but I'm going to hold down Option. I'm going to make a copy of that underneath this roof here. So we have 2 lines, right? There's our one line over here. That's going to be our target. And this one is our origin. Let's zoom out a little bit again. So I'm going to go back here. Here's our camera. Now remember, from our help menu, we saw that this is the origin. So I'm just going to select this point right here. And I can actually zoom into my front view. There is my target. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to type in move, and I'm going to select that point, and I'm going to go here to my target and just go to the end of that point. The next thing I want to do, we can see this is our target here, and we want this point here, which is the target, the end target, right? So just select that, type in move, and move this one from here to our end target here. And now you'll see we have this view. So what I want you to do now is just hide this. And we're going to go over here to named views. So this little camera icon here, you can see I already saved a couple, but I want you to save 3 extra ones. So actually what I'll do is I'm just going to delete these guys here. So you should have something like this. So this is our first view. And what I want to do is save this view, so that whenever I double click on that, it's going to go back to this view. So I'm simply going to click on this little plus sign here, and we're going to call this view 1, enter. And there we have it. So let's create another view. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And note when I zoom out and in and I double click on this, it's going to go back to that view, right? So let's zoom out, and maybe this time, let's see what the view looks like. I'm going to move my starting point here. Maybe I want to see what the view is from this point. So imagine someone standing here and you're looking out here. So that's the first point. And I'm going to grab this guy here, this curve, which is our target. And I'm just going to use my gumball and move that over there. So what I want to do is this time I want to change the camera from this point to this point. Okay, so here's our origin point, and we're going to work in the front view because I can see my curves there. I'm going to select that point and say move from here to my origin point, which is here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Right there. And then my target point, which is this one. And I'm going to move that from that point. And I just zoom in a little bit. It's a little hard to see, but there is my point. And there we go. So this is the second view. So I'm just going to hide this. So there it is. And now I can add another view. So let's call this view 2. Great. And let's do one more view. So I'm going to zoom out. Maybe, let's see. So we've done one from here, one from here. Maybe we want to see what the view is from the inside, maybe. Okay. So I will type in show to show all my curves. So I'm going to grab this guy here, move it kind of over here. And then this one, we're going to move this to an inside point, maybe. No, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to move this guy over here and slightly inwards like that. And then maybe move this one over. So that'll be our third view. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. There's our beginning point and our end point. So once again, select our camera origin. And I'm going to go to my front view. Let me just do this. And move that point from here to this point. It's a little tricky here. Got things running around. Move our target point from here. Now I need to find my second point, which is right there. Just going to zoom in. There it is. And there we have it. That's our third view. It's not a very exciting view, but let's just say, for instance, that is something you wanted to, you wanted a vantage point from here. So I can just hide this, and I now can add this as view 3. And then the last step is to export these as PDFs. So you can see I can double click on my first view. And once again, I'm just hiding those curves, and I'm going to say File, Export. And let's call this Bark Pavilion, and I'll just call this view 1. Okay, and a couple of options here. So we want landscape. I'm going to change this to, no, let's keep this at the same size so that we can put everything in one PDF. So this is our first view. Now, instead of vector output, we're going to use raster output. Now, I know this is just kind of boring shaded view, but you might have worked on some renderings, and so this would be a view that you would export with the renderings. But for this exercise, we're just sticking to shaded view. I'm going to use black and white, and I'm selecting view 1, right? This is a new sort of view. Think of this as a new viewport that you created. So great, view 1, and I'm going to say apply, and that should export. Let's do view 2. Same thing, File, Export, and we're going to just call this view 2. And that looks good. And then click on view 3, File, Export, and this will be view 3. And we should, when we open up Acrobat, we should be able to just open these up and see these different views. There's our one view, our next one, and let's open up the last one, layout 3, here we go, and our third view. Nothing too exciting, but this just shows you how you can generate different views of architecture using the camera. I'm going to reset things a little bit. So I'm going to type in camera, and I'm going to hide the camera. I'm going to go to view, and I'm going to do extends all just to bring everything back. And let's change this back to, we're going to set this view to perspective, and everything else looks great. Okay, so the make 2D command, very simply put, is we can take 3D geometry and make a 2D drawing of it. So for example, I'm just going to draw something very, very simple here. I have a box and maybe I'll just draw a sphere. Okay. And what I want to do, let me just change the color here so we can see what we're doing. I'm just going to select both of these objects and I'm simply going to type in make 2D. And what that's going to ask me is, okay, what is the view I'm looking at? In this case, perspective. I can choose the projection if I want to project it on the C plane, if I want a third angle plane or a first angle plane. Let's just stick with view from now. I'm going to leave my object properties. And a couple of other things I can choose here. I'm going to not choose scene silhouette for now, so I can show you what the difference is. And then I can change my layer name. So let's just call this test make 2D. And I'm going to delete that layer again. So what this is going to do, when I click apply, you'll see firstly there's a new layer here called test make 2D, and it has a layer called visible and has some curves. And you'll see something funky going on here. And really what this did is projected this 3D geometry into the top view, and it made a 2D version of that. So you can see I can just actually grab this and move this over. So you can see it's a 2D version of that view. Let's do that again. And this time I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete this test make 2D. And let's change our view a little bit. So maybe I want, instead of perspective, I'm going to set my view to isometric, southeast, and I'm just going to maybe turn that around a little bit like that. This is the view that we want. Let's just say, for example, this is the view that we want. Select both these objects, type make 2D, and this time I'm actually going to say scene silhouette, and I'm not going to do hidden line yet. We'll do that next, and I'll call this, test 2 or something, just for our work here. So now the scene silhouette, what that did is created, if I switch on the print preview, you'll see that it creates a slightly darker line around the silhouette. And this is quite nice for two-dimensional drawings. Let me just change this to black here. It kind of shows, oopsie, I wonder why it didn't change the color for that. Display color by layer. I'm not sure why I did that. This should be black. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, I need to change this to black here. And this one here is still a straggler. We've changed that to black. And this one over here, this curve as well, change that to black. So you can see that these lines are slightly darker to show what the exterior is of that 3D object. So that's quite nice. But let's go ahead and delete that. That's just a test. And I'm going to go back to the actual model that I want. And what I'm going to do is select this entire model. Oh, actually, the first thing I need to do is make sure I have a view that I like. Whatever view you have here, so if I have it like this, it would make a 2D version. If I have it like that, it would make a 2D version. So you want to make sure you have a view that you like. So let's choose something like this. I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to type in make 2D. And you can experiment a little bit with the tangent lines, the hidden lines, etc. It does get a little busy with architecture, but if you have more sort of less complex shapes, you can play around with tangent and hidden lines. But I'm just going to select scene silhouette. I'm going to group my output, and I'm going to call my layer Bark Pavilion 2D. Okay, and there is my new layer. I'm just going to go to my top view, zoom out a little bit, and let's just move this to the side. And you'll see that now I have a 2D version. Now I do notice that I need to still change all my curve colors to black. So I'm just going to select all of that. And I'm going to do display color by layer. And just select black here and oh, I see these are grouped. Okay, let's just do this and let's change our display color by layer, align, and I print by layer. And we're going to change this to black as well. Hopefully that'll do it. There we go. So this is what I want you to do for Make 2D. So this is one view that we have. And then what I'd like you to do is create a couple more views. So maybe we'll do something like, maybe we want to see the other side of the building, right? Something like this. We're going to select all of this and we're going to say make 2D. Let's keep everything the same. It's going to create another drawing, and let's just move this to the side. And once again, select everything. This is we're in our print preview mode. So the print color by layer, and we're just going to change that to black, and that should change that. And now what we want to do is perhaps you just want to sort of lay this out in a way that makes a little bit more sense, and just move this to the side. It's up to you what you want to do here, how you want to represent this. But the next thing you're going to do is, once you have made a couple of make 2D views, select both of them, or 3 or 4, however many you want to make. And we're going to say File, Export Selected, and we're going to choose PDF. Scroll down to PDF, and we'll call this Bark Pavilion Make 2D. So we're going to use the same page size. We're going to say landscape. We want to have this be a vector output, and I'm going to use black and white. And in this case, we do want the top view, but what I'm going to do is click on extends. And what that is going to do is fill the content so it fills the entire page. And that's what we want, right? You can also scale. Let's see, we could scale that. Right now we're 1 inch. We could say let's scale this from 1 to 150 and see what that does. I think that's a little small, so let's do 1 to 180. Now I don't see my model anymore, so let's do 120. 120 could work. But I'll leave that up to you. But you want to make sure you click on extends. You can change the scale, but you'll have something like this. Maybe I could have added another make 2D there, but let's just say this is what I want right now. I'm going to say apply. And then if I open up Acrobat, and let's open this up here. Here's our make 2D. You should have something like this. The very last step of this assignment is to create some clipping planes. And a clipping plane is simply a plane that you create in either the horizontal, vertical, it can even be on a diagonal level, that clips or sort of slices through the geometry or architecture. For example, if I were to just zoom out a bit and I'm going to type in clipping plane, it's asking me for the first corner of the clipping plane, and I'm just keeping an eye on my top view here. And here is my other point of my clipping plane. Now you'll see what happens is it looks like everything has disappeared, but if I just select this plane here and I start moving it up, you'll see that it's slowly slicing through the building. So what I'd like to do here is just go slightly underneath that top roof there to see more of the architecture. So let me just rotate that a little, orbit that a little bit, and let's say we're happy with that. I am going to hide the clipping plane. I don't think I have to do that, but I'm going to do that anyway. And I'm going to select all of this. Oopsie, that's not what I wanted to do. Select all of this, and I'm going to type I'm going to type make 2D. And we're going to do perspective, view, from input objects, scene silhouette, everything looks good. And let's call this clipping plane 2D horizontal, and apply. Just give it a minute to think. Let's go to our top view, and you'll see that I'm just going to move this aside with my gumball. There we have a 2D, make 2D version of our clipping plane. And I do have my print preview on, so it will show me the scene silhouette. Okay, I'm going to hide that layer for now, go back to all my viewports, and I'm going to show my clipping plane again. So type in show, and this time we're going to do a vertical clipping plane. So I could just draw a new clipping plane, but I can also just take this clipping plane and I can just rotate it on the x-axis. So I'm just going to select this red part here. Sorry, that's the That's the z-axis, sorry about that. I'm going to type in 90, and it looks like we can't see anything, but as you sort of scroll, you'll see that we start seeing parts of the architecture. So now we're going to go to perspective. We're going to maximize that, and I'm going to select a view that makes sense, maybe something slightly like that, and I can just drag through that and decide how much of this do I want to see. Do I want that? I'm actually going to go through those walls, maybe something like that. And let's change our view to isometric southeast and see what we got. I'm not totally happy with that, so I'm actually going to just orbit up a little bit, and I'm going to do more something like that. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and hide this clipping plane, zoom in a little bit, select all of this and type in make 2D. Leave everything the same, except I'm going to change this to vertical. Apply. Give it some time to think. And if we go to our top view, there is our new make 2D. I'm going to show my horizontal as well. Let's move this up. Actually, I'm going to move this down. And maybe a little bit to the right. I'm going to select both of these. You can line these up a little bit better, and maybe you create better clipping planes. I'm just doing this to show you. Select both of those, and I'm going to go up to File, Export Selected, and let's call this Bark Pavilion, but instead of Make 2D, we're going to call this Clipping Plane, and we want to save that as a PDF. There we go. Once again, we're going to select Extends, and maybe I will scale it a little bit. Let's see, I am going to just use these up and down arrows. It's being very slow right now. See, I'm just slowly changing the values here till I'm happy with the result. Let's see what happens if I make this 120. Good enough. I'm happy with that. You could also do 100. Let's see what that gives us. I actually like that better. And once we're done with that, we can say apply, and we're going to export that as a PDF, and we can open this up. Here is our clipping plane, and there we have it. Now I did cut off that little corner there, so this would have been better more in the center of the page, obviously. Hopefully you will do a better job with that. Once you've finished all the exercises, you should end up with 6 different files, which I'd like you to combine into one PDF. So what we're going to do is in Acrobat, you're going to click on Combine Files. You're going to add those 6 files, which are all of these, not that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to add those. And then you can arrange them. So we're going to do the layout first, and then we'll do the, we'll do the clipping plane next. Oh no, we'll do the make 2D, then the clipping planes, and then you can have the 3 views, and we're going to say combine. And you should end up with a file like this. We have the layout, we have some make 2D, we have clipping planes, and you should have 3 views. And once again, feel free to change this up if you wanted to have more views here in the viewport, or different views of the make 2, or different kinds of clipping planes. Feel free to experiment. You can even try your hand a little bit at rendering, but it's not required for this assignment. At minimum, this is what I'd like to see for this assignment, is these 6 files combined into one PDF. And that concludes it for our drawing extraction assignment.